Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me the chance to visit with many of the top chefs and restaurateurs across the Mid-South on these podcasts. I will tell you, I have been a foodie since before that term was even invented, and for the better part of 30 years, I had the privilege of writing dining reviews and other restaurant features for a couple of Little Rock newspapers and then magazines long before the internet gave everybody a chance to be a food critic. But I will tell you truthfully, I love talking about food a lot more than writing about food. Today, our guests on Heaping Spoonful are Jamie and Rob Gaston. They're the owners and operators of Copper Mule Table and Tap in Bryant, Arkansas. So welcome, Jamie and Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Glad you're here. I will tell you the professional roads our Heaping Spoonful guests have traveled before they opened their first restaurant vary, but for the most part, there's some consistency to their backgrounds. They went to culinary school or, they grew up working in restaurants or whatever, but your paths to opening Copper Mule Table and Tap are unique to the 80-plus folks we've talked to on this podcast. So what we have here is we got a registered nurse and we got a businessman with a finance background deciding to open a restaurant and take on all that entails. And from what I hear, and I read a good little article by my friend Rob Rodell, Bryant City Councilman and guy that I work with at Arkansas Electric Cooperatives, and he said, and quoted you guys as saying, I believe, that your decision to open your restaurant started when you were living in Bryant and having a family in Bryant and decided, we really need a good local spot as opposed to only the chain type places that Bryant has. And there's a lot of stuff that's good to eat in Bryant, but not much of it's local. Is that pretty much the way it came down?
Yes, that's pretty true. We moved to Bryant in 2018 from Northwest Arkansas, and that area really has grown over the years. And one of the things that Northwest Arkansas has become known for is their variety in food and drink offerings. And when we moved to Bryant in 2018, that was one of the first things we noticed. Those offerings that we were used to in Northwest Arkansas were limited here. There was a lot more chain restaurants available, but not a lot of the kind of niche type of offerings that we had in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, that's for sure. And you were up there, we'll talk about that in a little bit, for a dozen years or so. And man, things have really changed. And it's a vibrant community in so many ways. And definitely dining and craft cocktails and good wines and beers is part of it. So we hope we have listeners all over the country, all over the universe, even on Mars maybe. And some of you may not know that Bryant is a growing community. It's about 20 miles southwest of Little Rock. For some folks, it's a bedroom community, but the amenities there have really increased over the years. So you all saw a need, and now you've got what, many say, and I first learned about you from friends who live in Bryant and also from you winning awards in the Arkansas Times Readers Polls. When you look back on it, and you're sitting there with that great idea, are you surprised at how well it's gone since you all did not have that background?
Absolutely. Not having any background in the restaurant business, was probably one of the big hindrances into even starting and moving forward with the concept. But I think we knew if we delivered, a good concept with a good atmosphere and could deliver some good customer service to our customers, that we knew would be successful. Because like I said, Bryant just doesn't have those type of offerings. So, most people will be repeat customers if you can provide, good food, good service, and a good atmosphere to dine in.
Sure. You're exactly right. And as folks who had done that dining and enjoyed that service and that good food, you knew the experience you were looking for. You just were on the other side of the table. So you all opened Copper Mule right around Thanksgiving of 2020. So 2020 is an infamous year that will live in infamy forever, given what we all went through with COVID. Where were things going with COVID, by Thanksgiving of 2020, were you under any restrictions, or could you just open up like nothing was going on? I can't remember exactly what was happening then.
Oh, no, sir. We had, this is probably one of the most asked questions we get when people find out about our lack of restaurant background. And when we opened, just kind of going through, COVID in general was tough, but trying to open a restaurant during those times was probably, one of the toughest things you could try to do. The restrictions you mentioned, we had fewer tables than capacity than we actually could have from a capacity standpoint. You had to keep patrons 6 feet apart, which in our small space was a challenge in itself. And we were also, I believe at that time, required to wear masks while trying to serve customers, which is challenging, especially when you're trying to communicate, take orders, and serve customers. So on top of not having a lot of background in the restaurant business or any for that fact, opening during that time was extremely challenging. And probably, in retrospect, we probably learned a lot from it, just because we weren't serving as many customers as we could. So we probably actually got a chance to work out some kinks before we, served at max capacity. But the times were definitely challenging.
Yeah, well, that's true. It did let you kind of break in slowly, but it also meant your revenue wasn't where it ended up. So surely you guys, when you began the thought process on this, you all must have thought of this all up before March of 2020, or you wouldn't even have jumped in at that time. So I guess you were well along the road to figuring out what you wanted to do when COVID struck, and then it was several months later before you opened.
Yes, sir. The idea actually came up in the fall of, 2019. We were watching the football game, and decided that we kind of wanted to go out and have some drinks and some hors d'oeuvres. And, and like I said, in Bryant at that time, there wasn't a lot of offerings to choose from. So that's kind of what sparked, the idea. We did sit on it for several months, kind of thinking about, do we really want to go down this road? I think Jamie's told most people that, prior to opening this, she would tell you that I would never be in the restaurant business. It's one of those, with my background from Walmart, being the restaurant business is not something I was ever interested in. So we did sit on the idea for a while. But like I said, Bryant having such limited offerings, we thought if we could, execute the concept that it could be successful.
Well, and turns out you obviously were right. So, LinkedIn may not tell all, but I will say, as a man preparing podcast research in this day and age, it's one of the places that I go. And I went there to see, I saw quite a bit about your career, Rob, and just to tell people where you came from. You got a finance degree from Arkansas State, which is in Jonesboro, Northeast Arkansas. You were down here in Little Rock working in finance roles at Alltel, which it was a very booming telecommunications company that got snatched up by Verizon. A lot of people I knew at Alltel had some choices or no choices and went on to other things. And you went to Northwest Arkansas for more than a dozen years and worked for, two of the hallmark employers, J.B. Hunt, which is a large trucking company, but then the big daddy of them all, 10 years at Walmart. So I saw that, and again, thanks to LinkedIn, I saw all the different areas of the business that you worked in, and some of those were packaged food related areas. And so clearly your finance background helped you operate a business, or, know how to do the money side of operating a business like Copper, Mule, Table and Tab. You said that your Walmart background told you maybe you didn't want to be in the business. I didn't know if the food-related part of your Walmart experience had anything to do with what you do now, or completely unrelated.
Oh, no, it definitely did. The reason I say, working in the food area, you just know that the food business in general is a tough business, whether it's in restaurants or in retail. Space is highly competitive. The restaurant business, I grew up farming and tell people all the time, if you think you can lose money in farming, try the restaurant business. You can lose it twice as fast. So yeah, it's funny, but no, my Walmart background, I honestly attribute to, like you mentioned back during COVID when revenues weren't the way they were supposed to be. I really believe without the background that I got at Walmart, I don't know how successful it would have been if we would have made it. It taught me how to, when customers aren't coming in store spending money, you have to find ways to continue to, deliver on your financial commitments you've made to the company on the bottom line. And when revenue wasn't coming in, that's kind of what we did. We just found a lot of different ways to pinch pennies, whether, try to, cut staff as quickly as we can if we were slow, or negotiate, costs with suppliers. And I think that's probably, for me, I was involved in some really large businesses. So that financial part definitely helped. But, I was also a part of a team that worked with suppliers. So, being able to put together, a strategic plan with suppliers, or negotiate costs, or learn a lot about their supply chains, that's helped me kind of post-COVID as we've come out of COVID and all the inflation we've had over the last, couple of years. That background has really helped me to be able to, talk to suppliers in a way where, they feel like they're winning, but Copper Mule can kind of win on some of those things as well. So it definitely was a big part, in the background early on. And, I still think, in order to run a business, you've got to be able to manage the P&L, but you've also got to be able to work with partners and build partnerships that go, past just, I need something or they need something. It's got to be something that's more long-term.
Right. And I have friends in the restaurant business who were able to, negotiate decent deals with their landlords on rent, and then obviously working with food service companies who were all in the same situation of a, more supply than demand for a while. But, restaurants thankfully didn't have it quite as bad as hotels in that time when they, because you could, like I said, you could still serve some. And then there was the curbside pickup, and some people went in delivery, but it was, and none of us knew how long it was going to last. That's the thing too. I remember when it, hit in March, we had a vacation scheduled in October. We're like, oh, surely it'll be fine by October. But guess what? It wasn't. And you know that because you opened a restaurant the next month. So Jamie, you're a nurse, and I see you're also an ASU grad. Is that where Rob and you met?
Actually, no. We're from the same hometown. We went to high school together. He's a little bit older than I am.
Which town is that?
We're from Helena, West Helena.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Cool.
Arkansas, yep.
The Delta.
And so, yeah, that's right. So he went to college first, went to A-State. I followed him a few years later, obviously chose A-State because he was there. And then the rest is history. Yeah,
well, that's great. Well, as Rob's career, took him from Central Arkansas to Northwest Arkansas and back, did you continue to practice nursing all along the way?
Yeah, so I was a nurse in Bentonville. When we first moved here, I also was a nurse in the Bryant school systems for a few years. Rob called one day and we just brainstormed through what it would look like me helping him out because we'd been so successful and things were going so great. So we just decided together that I would step away from nursing for a little bit and help him out at Copper Mule.
Well, that's great. I'm glad the situation, and hopefully that gives you a little more flexibility with your kids too. So, and as we discussed before we got on the air, you guys have just come back from a baseball tournament that your son was on the winning team. So that makes everything, being really sleepy is a little better when you got that excitement to look back on too.
That's right. When you have a gold ring, that's true.
Yeah, that's great. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't explore too much that, your first inspiration for opening your restaurant was really a lack of what you were looking for on the Bryant restaurant scene. You want to go watch some football and have some good apps and some drinks, and there really weren't a lot of choices. So from that process, and that you said that was in the fall of 19, did you all just start looking for a location or developing a menu or start talking? What was kind of the progression of the idea that, you had to jump through a certain number of hoops and to get to where you were to open the restaurant, I guess about a year later, maybe a little more than a year later. How did all that go?
Yeah, well, it was kind of different. Like you mentioned, my career path out of college was basically corporate America. And so I spent 17 years in corporate America. And if you've ever worked in corporate America, sometimes it can be really difficult to get away because it can be a very secure, job area that you're in, paychecks coming in every 2 weeks. And, if you're with the right company, you could probably make a long-term career out of it. But I started kind of to get burnt out with corporate America and left Walmart and got into buying and selling real estate. And I don't know, when I left Walmart, it really kind of, set off this kind of different side of how I looked at entrepreneurship. I knew when I left Walmart, I never wanted to do anything other than work for myself. So I started to, I don't know, I guess see things through a different lens as you saw, businesses or, other business people, and you listen and talk to them. You just kind of, I think, see things through a different lens when you're, trying to do the same thing. And so, like I said, when this idea came up, I think just from the lack of, things like it in Bryant, it seemed like just a good opportunity to maybe start a successful business. Like I said, I never thought I would be in the restaurant business, but, the concept in itself, kind of, sold itself. There was no other, concept in the area like it.
Right.
The niche restaurants in Bryant were basically non-existent.
Right.
So once we kind of talked through the concept, we realized, it could work. So I would say after the initial idea, we probably sat on it for a few months, talk about it here and there. If we did it, how would we want it to look? What kind of customers would we serve? What kind of food do we serve? Drinks, those kind of things. And I would say probably, after the first of the year in 2020, probably before COVID, actually got big and we knew what it was, we kind of put together, I guess you could call it a business plan. This is the food we would serve. These are the kind of drinks we want to serve. This is the clientele, we would like to be able to offer, from a price range or a variety standpoint. And actually the first space we found didn't work out. The space was actually leased before we could commit to it. And so that set us back a little while, but I think in actuality, it was probably a good thing in hindsight. The location we're in now is part of a developing part of Bryant where there's a lot of small businesses coming in, and that development is in and around Copper Mule. So I think, given the growth that's around us, it was something that was probably a little bit heartbreaking at the time. But like I said, looking backwards was probably, a blessing in disguise, because I think the location we're in is in a really good part of Bryant where there's a lot of new business development in that area.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, again, as a guy who worked in a very business-focused world for all those years and profit-focused world, I mean, you saw finding a business opportunity when no one's meeting a particular need, and you found a need that wasn't being met, and it's really paid off. We'll talk more about specific items on your menu in just a bit, but you have a definite Cajun Creole focus, which again is something that I've always loved. And again, coincidental, since I was kind of researching your restaurant and this podcast, sitting in my hotel room, looking out over Canal Street in New Orleans, where I'd been on at a conference for my business, and then went to Jazz Fest Saturday. So flew home last night. So that's great. How did you decide Cajun Creole was kind of the way you were going to go?
Well, I think originally, the menu was more Southern based. Like Jamie mentioned, we're from East Arkansas, and that's kind of the food that when I think about growing up, that my grandmother, and then as I got older, Jamie's grandmother was a great cook too, and it's just something that's kind of part of our upbringing. So when we first started developing the menu, it really was more Southern. And then as we started to hire, as we got further in the process of, well, this is the menu, it may look like this, and this is where we're going to be from a location standpoint, we started to hire kitchen staff. And some of that staff, had more of a Cajun Creole background. And obviously, threw around some ideas on just some specific, I guess, core Cajun and Creole dishes that were part of their upbringing and background. And I think, when we kind of put them all together, we felt like we had a good, well-rounded menu, some Southern staples, as well as some Cajun and Creole staples. And it was funny, while I was kind of preparing some thoughts for the podcast, I pulled up our first menu that we developed, I guess 3 years ago now. And for the most part, all the staple items are there, but, we have removed a few and added a few over the last 2.5 years, mostly just based off, customer feedback. Customer tells you, what's going to sell and not sell based off of how they spend their money. So we've definitely taken a few items off that, did not sell as well as we had hoped, and added a few that have actually become some of our best sellers along the way.
Yeah, that's great. And I want anybody listening who's planning to go to Copper Mule Table and Tap. Don't think this is just a Cajun restaurant. There's plenty of great examples of that, but it is, as Jamie said, as Rob said, it's really a well-rounded menu. So you started talking about hiring kitchen staff. Again, you guys had the business side, you had the ideas on the guest experience and how the place would go from a service perspective and some things you knew you wanted to serve from a food and drink perspective. Did you just go looking for somebody to be your leader of your kitchen, or did they happen upon you? How did that go?
Well, it's kind of an interesting process, kind of just back to old upbringings in Walmart. One of the things I learned from one of my, I guess, best mentors I had in that business was, you always build teams that have experiences and talents that you don't have. And obviously, this was an easy way to figure it out for me because I had no restaurant experience. So we definitely had to find, a kitchen staff that had experience, whether it would be, starting a kitchen, working in a kitchen, or even, developing menus and items on menus. But like I said, originally when we started looking for the kitchen staff or the chef individually, it wasn't necessarily looking for anything in specific other than just the background, the experience, where they had the previous experience was at. And it just, happened upon that the chef we decided to hire, had that Creole and Cajun background, which, looking back was a perfect fit for what we were trying to do.
Well, if I were to open a restaurant, and I'd have a lot of ideas about what I wanted to serve, but what I wouldn't know is what all equipment I needed in my kitchen and all of the ins and outs and all of the pots and pans and So I guess as you built a kitchen staff, they also consulted with you on, hey, make sure you've got a this and a that and a this and a that.
Absolutely. It took us, quite a while to figure out, the space we were in originally was smaller than what we have now. So the amount of equipment we needed has grown over time, but it's kind of a running joke that we actually have, we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, and that we actually have some equipment that we originally bought when we opened the restaurant that we have yet to use because we overbought what we needed.
Yeah.
So now slowly but surely we're getting through it, but, they may have said we need, 10 of these, and we ordered 10 and actually only needed, 3 or 4. And so over the years we've used up some of that equipment. But like I said, it was, I tell people all the time, I knew really nothing about the restaurant business, and I have learned, everything I know over the last 2.5 years, and every day I go in, I learn something else. So
sure. And wish you'd known some of that first. Okay, one more question I just have to ask. So Copper Mule Table and Tap, where did the name come from?
So the name was actually one of the easier things for us to come up with. We knew we wanted to serve a great mule. And so mules are served in a copper, they're in a copper cup. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind our name was to call it a Copper Mule. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Table and Tap makes sense because you can eat and you can have a drink. And again, I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Bryant from 4th grade till I graduated high school. And man, I still have a hard time realizing I can stop and buy a 6-pack in Bryant, but I'm not mad about it, that's for sure. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful and be back in just a bit with Jamie and Rob Gaston of Copper Mule Table and Tap in Bryant, Arkansas.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful as we continue our conversation with Jamie and Rob. So we're recording on the 1st of May, 2023, and you've been open in Bryant for almost 2.5 years, but you've already told me some of the menu items have changed. I'm sure the look and feel are pretty much the same, and I'm sure you wish you knew 2.5 years ago what you know now, but is much different? You did say, I think I may have asked a question you've already answered, which is you've taken a few slower sellers off and added some stuff that have proven popular.
Yeah, while there's still a lot that's the same, quite a bit has changed. When we opened up, in November of 2020, we've actually doubled the space that we have since then. Actually, 6 months after we opened, we rented the space next door and opened it up within the first year. So that's, we have twice the space we had when we first opened. Our staff, I think when we first opened, we had probably 12 staff in the kitchen and front of house. Now we have nearly 30, so our staff has doubled. Yeah. Like you said, the menu at the core is the same, but we've added a few and taken a few off along the way. Jamie has come to work, at Copper Mule full time, which has been great. She actually works the front of the house, and I spend most of my time in the back in the kitchen. But honestly, I think the biggest thing that's changed what I've learned, when I was hiring and opened up, Copper Mule and Bryant, one of the things I learned most about the restaurant business is how unique the restaurant culture is, the people and the culture of kind of around a restaurant. And I think one of the biggest things that's changed since we've opened until now is probably, the culture. We've really tried hard to, hire a staff that, just wants to come in and work in an environment where everybody respects each other. And that, they just come in every day and do a job and serve our customers. I think that was one of the toughest things when we first opened. We went through, and COVID played a part, but we went through a lot of different staff, a lot of turnover the first year. And I think that was a little bit disheartening as we went through that, just having so much turnover and, not knowing, if staff was going to show up for work and other things. But, 2.5 years later, we have, a staff that I would stack against any in the business when it comes to just, great people who want to come in, work hard, come in to work, on time and just, are eager to serve customers. But like I said, that's probably the biggest change for me in the last 2.5 years is just how well the staff we have now is just a great fit for what Jamie and I, are trying to do from, employing people every day.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the restaurant business, particularly when things are really jamming, it's an adrenaline rush. I mean, it is, when you've complete a night of service or a day of service and you've done well and the team's gelled and the kitchen's doing great and the servers are keeping everybody happy, it's really almost like winning a game. I mean, you feel like a shared sense of victory, and it sounds like the fact that you were able to get the space next door and got your staff all in place. It sounds like things are really going well. So I'll tell you what. Now let's look at some of the items on your menu. Just a little color commentary on some of these, and the first one, which is one I saw mentioned in the article I read about you, is your mule balls, which are on the Cajun side of things. So tell us about those.
So our mule balls, it's deep fried boudin. It's definitely a crowd fave, and a lot of people like it. It's one of our appetizers, and we make a house remoulade sauce that goes with it, which is delicious. So that is what our mule balls are, fried boudin.
It's straight up, so it's straight up boudin, which is a fabulous sausage that, again, is known best in Louisiana. And I have to give you credit because on your po' boys, which you offer 4 seafood choices, I mean, if you call catfish seafood, which I am in this case, and you serve it on Leidenheimer bread, which, again, I just got back from New Orleans, and it's nice that restaurants in Arkansas can get that fabulous bread because that kind of defines the po' boy to me.
Yes, I think the bread is definitely what sets it apart, makes it great, makes our po' boys delicious.
Yeah. And then you've got your jambalaya, which features 4 meats, and that's I love jambalaya so much I've got to figure out how to make it. It can't be that hard, but I've never made it before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally make it. Our chef makes it. It's made with spicy sausage, andouille sausage, ham, and chicken, which is the 4 meats you were talking about. We've recently changed up this recipe just a little bit. Customers were wanting it to have a little bit more spice and flavor, and so we took that feedback. And I think our chef knocked it out of the park.
Cool. Now you got gumbo as any place that calls itself a little bit Cajun wants to. So you went chicken and andouille versus seafood, which again I love them both. And then is this kind of more of a dark roux or a light roux sort of gumbo?
It's a dark roux gumbo, and we chose to not have seafood. We have so many seafood options on the menu. We just wanted to give customers that like an option to get something without seafood in it. So that's more the reason we chose no seafood on the gumbo.
I also see that on your red beans and rice, you even specify that you use the Camellia red beans, which again I looked them up, and that's the way to go. So I love your commitment to using the most authentic ingredients you can. Is that something you all already knew, or did you just do a little consulting with your food service folks, and they said that's what you needed to do?
Well, we leaned in on, like Rob was talking about earlier, we leaned into our staff on this, people that had experience, some people that were natives of Louisiana, and we just took their feedback, and that's kind of where we came up with some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, that was a smart move again. And as I said earlier, anybody who thinks that your restaurant's occasion only, that's definitely not the case. You've got a broad menu with lots of other favorites. Again, you both grew up with good cooking grandmothers in East Arkansas, and but the thing I'm going to start with, and anybody who knows restaurants in Arkansas, whether they are Mexican or not, you got to have some cheese dip, and you all have a smoked queso. And you use kettle chips versus tortilla chips. When I told my wife that, she was jumping up and down because that's the way she likes to get it when we go somewhere. Tell me,
she likes kettle chips. Okay.
She wants potato chips. She doesn't want tortilla chips with her cheese dip. Now,
okay.
She gets what she wants. That's generally the case. So
yeah,
smoked,
like
does that just mean y'all use a smoked cheese?
So no, the smoked actually comes from the spice blend that we use in the cheese dip. Okay. We use a smoked chipotle and a smoked paprika along with 5 other different spices. Actually we serve our cheese dip and our crawfish cheese dip, or smoked queso and crawfish cheese dip with like a toasted Leidenheimer bread, which is the way to go. If you ask me, it's my favorite, and I think most customers prefer it. But we chose kettle chips as another option to give a variety.
Yeah, that's cool. Can't go wrong. Well, listen, one thing I've learned from all the folks I've talked to who've been guests on the Heaping Spoonful is that if you do them right, a good burger and a good steak are going to always be popular in a restaurant in the Mid-South. And you guys have 3 different treatments of the burgers, plus you have sliders, and you have a New York strip. Are those, like at everywhere else I've talked to, are those remain popular items for you?
The burgers and the sliders are definitely one of our most popular items. Our burgers are, we patties our burgers ourselves. We use our own seasoning, so you're not, getting any pre-pattied or frozen meat when it comes to our burgers and sliders. Everything is pattied and seasoned in-house. And the burgers and sliders, for the most part, are, some of our best handheld sellers for sure. The New York strip, it was more just kind of an offering we wanted to offer to round out the menu. Kind of when we came to with the menu originally, I knew that I wanted to have a steak offering, but we cut our New York strips in-house and obviously cooked to order. But we wanted to have a steak on the menu, but also at a price point like we felt like people could come in and afford. And we thought, the ribeye is something we thought about, and we may see the ribeye somewhere down the road in the future. But the New York strip was more just to kind of round out the menu for anybody who wanted to come in, and have a steak, which I'm a steak guy. If I go out to eat, that's one of the first things I'm looking for. So the strip was it's a good prime cut New York strip. Like I said, cut and seasoned in-house. And it was more just to have an offering for the customers who were looking for that, that steak option on the menu if they came.
Makes perfect sense. And again, true to your Southern heritage, you got fried bologna, which I adore. Was that just a thing where you said, we're a Southern restaurant, we love fried bologna, so we're going to serve it kind of decision?
No, sir. Like you said, Jim and I grew up in East Arkansas, and I know for me personally, fried bologna was something that I had while growing up. Most of the time we would fry it, put a little slice in it when you're frying it so it doesn't bubble up too much, and then put it on bread with mayonnaise and mustard and maybe a little bit of lettuce. But I also ate fried bologna with as a kind of a meat substitute at breakfast. So if we didn't have any sausage or bacon at home, we would fry up a few eggs and fry a piece of bologna, sometimes with a piece of cheese, sometimes with not. So the fried bologna was just something that I grew up with as a part of my upbringing. The reason we talked about putting fried Spam on the menu, which I nixed, and we decided to go the fried bologna route, not the fried Spam route. So
I didn't want to give the right choice.
Yeah, I didn't want to give away too much of my Delta roots with the fried Spam, so we went fried bologna.
That's great. So we've talked quite a while, and we haven't even really talked about the big news that I heard about a while back, which is that you're opening a second location, and this one is going to be in Little Rock, not just Little Rock, but at the in the Heights neighborhood of Little Rock. So, just as you had your time that you ruminated on opening your first location, what led to the decision to open number 2, and has that been in the works a while? Tell us about where that stands.
Yeah, I mean, the second location, honestly, me personally, I critique myself pretty hard on things. And so sometimes I need feedback from people to kind of let me know, how well or how poorly, things may be going. And, we have so many customers that come in and ask us when we're going to put up a location near them, whether it's Conway or Hot Springs or Cabot. And honestly, it just kind of hit me one day, that we hear this so much. We really should think about the second location. Honestly, the reason it had kind of been on the back burner, we have kids that are, school age, and they obviously take up a lot of our time. They have sports and extracurricular activities that need our attention. And I was always worried that, another location could hinder that. But I think after kind of Jamie came on board and we kept getting this feedback, it just made the decision, a little bit easier because I knew we could do it together versus, one of us being split a million ways with the restaurant and the other one, running kids all over the place. So, once we kind of decided, I would say in the works, it's probably been in the works for the last, say 6 to 8 months, probably, maybe a little bit longer than that. Little Rock was obviously a pretty easy choice for locations. It's close to Bryant, which means that, if it needs our attention, we can be there in 20 minutes. Jamie is actually going to go run the Heights location, so it won't be a tremendously long commute for her. And I think the Heights, just from a location standpoint, makes, a ton of sense. It has a great vibe in the area. If you've ever been up to, some of the other restaurants up there, like Cheers in the Heights or Heights Tacos and Tamales, it's just got a good vibe. Plus it's a high traffic area.
Without a doubt.
The population density of that location versus the one we have in Bryant is, exponentially higher. So you have a lot of people who walk to restaurants and shop, bike, and it's just, I think it was just an easy choice. We didn't get there. It wasn't necessarily the number one the entire time, but as we started to kind of dwindle down, other areas we did not want to go, the Heights came to the top of the list pretty quick.
What was in that space before your restaurant?
It was an art gallery.
Okay, I thought that was the case. I guess if it's an art gallery, I guess that means you're just like your original location in Bryant. You're building it out as a restaurant, with but you're doing it with 2.5 years of knowledge of how to do this. So
I hope this time around I make a fewer mistakes.
By 3 instead of 10 of certain things for sure. That's right. Yeah, we hope that people are listening to this for years to come. So by the time they hear this, they may have eaten there 10 times. But when are you hoping to open the restaurant?
Yeah, so we originally were trying to get it open about the first to middle of May. We had a few delays with just trying to get the layout of the restaurant the way it needed to be, and then now we're in a little bit of a delay from a permitting aspect, unfortunately, with the storms that went through Little Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Attention is obviously needed in other places, and we understand that. But, we're still going through that process, and we're hoping that we get those permits in the next week or two, and we're hoping to be open by the end of June to the 1st of July. It being an art gallery, it was kind of, like you said, a blank canvas, not a lot of demolition to do. Most of the work is just trying to get plumbing and electrical and all those things in the places that we need them. So once that is done, it should come together pretty quickly. And so we're hoping, we can get it done in somewhere like an 8 to 10 week time frame.
Yeah. And you did say blank canvas on an art gallery. I know that was coincidental, but it was. You're funny without even knowing. So is the menu going to be at least to start pretty much the same as what you're doing in Bryant?
Yes, sir. It'll be pretty similar, but there could be a few surprises. We are actually, like Jamie said, we listen to a lot of feedback, and there's some things we've taken away from customers. Plus, we've challenged, some of our food suppliers, that know that area to kind of give us some feedback on some things that
Smart.
they may like to see there that we don't currently offer in Bryant. And I think through that process, you may see a few extra items in the Bryant location as well as we've gone through this. We've spent a lot of times in some test kitchens, tasting and changing some things,
right.
Trying to add some new, hip items to the menu in the Heights, but at the same time have found some items that we may make core to the menu in Bryant as well.
Sure. Well, I'm sitting right here at Benny Keith, and Shane Henderson and his team are. I know they're always ready to help you. One thing I also want to say, and I know you realize this, but when you have customers coming to your restaurant in Bryant saying, "Please come closer to me," and they're from Conway, Cabot, and Little Rock, and they're traveling to Bryant to eat, then you know you are doing something right.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's for sure. Well, listen, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Rob, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Good luck with all you're doing at your original Copper Mule in Bryant. And here's hoping everything goes smoothly as you get Little Rock up and running. And special thanks to all of you out there listening to Heaping Spoonful today. New episodes are posted on the first and third Tuesday of each month. So please keep an eye out for those. And we appreciate you listening. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.